Hanna Reitsch was a German aviator whose life was closely tied to the rapid rise of aviation in the early 20th century and to the turbulent history of Germany during the Second World War. She was born in 1912 in the town of Hirschberg in Silesia, which at the time was part of Germany. She grew up in a middle-class family where education and discipline were valued. From a young age, she showed strong determination and independence, traits that would define her entire life. Although her parents expected her to follow a traditional path, she became fascinated by flying after seeing gliders in the mountains near her home. This fascination quickly turned into a clear goal that shaped her future. Reitsch initially began studying medicine, as her family believed this would be a suitable and respectable career. She enrolled at university and started her training seriously, but aviation continued to pull her attention away from her studies. She spent much of her free time at gliding clubs, learning the basics of flight and aerodynamics. Gliding was one of the few areas of aviation that allowed women to participate at the time, and Reitsch quickly proved to be exceptionally talented. Eventually, she made the difficult decision to leave medical school behind and dedicate herself fully to flying, a choice that required courage and a willingness to defy social expectations. During the early 1930s, Reitsch became one of the most skilled glider pilots in Germany. She set several records for distance and endurance, earning recognition within the growing aviation community. Her success brought her to the attention of officials involved in Germany's expanding air programs. As the National Socialist government invested heavily in aviation, skilled pilots were highly valued. Reitsch was invited to work as a test pilot, a role that was both dangerous and prestigious. Test pilots were responsible for flying new and often experimental aircraft to discover their strengths and weaknesses, sometimes at great personal risk. Reitsch soon became known for her calmness under pressure and her willingness to fly aircraft that others considered too dangerous. She tested a wide range of planes, including gliders, helicopters, and rocket-powered aircraft. One of her most famous assignments involved the Me-163 Comet, a rocket fighter that was extremely fast but also highly unstable. Many pilots were injured or killed while testing it, yet Reitsch survived several serious accidents. In one crash, she suffered severe injuries to her skull and face, but after months of recovery, she returned to flying as soon as she was able. Her determination impressed her superiors and strengthened her reputation as one of the most fearless pilots in Germany. As the Second World War progressed, Reitsch became more closely associated with the leadership of the German state. She met Adolf Hitler on several occasions and was deeply loyal to him and to the cause he represented. This loyalty shaped many of her decisions and has heavily influenced how her legacy is viewed. She believed strongly that aviation could help Germany win the war and was willing to support almost any project that promised an advantage. One such project involved the development of piloted flying bombs, in which a pilot would guide an explosive-laden aircraft toward a target and escape at the last moment. Reitsch supported the idea and helped test the concept, though it was never used in combat in the form she proposed. Despite her loyalty, Reitsch remained focused primarily on aviation rather than politics. She saw herself as a pilot and engineer rather than a political figure. Even so, she benefited from the attention and honors given to her by the regime. She became one of the few women to receive high military decorations, and she was often used as a symbol of German strength and dedication. Her gender made her achievements especially striking at a time when women were largely excluded from military roles. Yet she did not see herself as a representative of women in general. She believed that ability and commitment mattered more than gender and expected others to meet the same high standards she set for herself. In the final months of the war, as Germany faced defeat, Reitsch remained in Berlin. She flew into the city during the Battle of Berlin, landing on makeshift airstrips under heavy fire. One of her most dramatic flights took place in April 1945, when she flew with a senior officer into the city to meet Hitler in his bunker. At this point, the situation was clearly hopeless, but Reitsch continued to express loyalty and belief in him. She later described the atmosphere in the bunker as tense and filled with despair. After this meeting, she managed to fly out of Berlin again, narrowly escaping capture. After the war ended, Reitsch was taken prisoner by Allied forces. She was interrogated, but never charged with war crimes. During her captivity, she struggled to understand and accept the full extent of the destruction caused by the regime she had supported. However, she never fully renounced her admiration for Hitler, a fact that later drew criticism and controversy. When she was released, she found herself in a very different world. Germany was divided, aviation was strictly controlled, and her past connections made it difficult for her to resume a flying career in her home country. Despite these obstacles, Reitsch gradually returned to aviation. She worked as a gliding instructor and helped rebuild the sport in post-war Germany. She also traveled abroad, including to countries in Africa and Asia, where she advised on aviation projects and taught flying. In the 1950s and 1960s, she regained some public attention as a record-breaking pilot, setting new gliding records even as she grew older. Her passion for flight never faded, and she continued to fly well into later life. Reitsch also wrote several books about her experiences. In these works, she presented herself as a dedicated pilot who had lived for flight above all else. Her accounts focused on technical challenges, personal courage, and the excitement of flying, while often avoiding deeper reflection on the moral implications of her wartime activities. This selective memory contributed to the ongoing debate about her character. Some viewed her as a brilliant and courageous aviator who broke barriers for women in aviation. Others saw her as someone who failed to take responsibility for supporting a destructive and criminal regime. In her later years, Reitsch lived quietly but remained active in aviation circles. She attended events, gave lectures, and continued to inspire admiration among glider pilots. At the same time, historians and the public increasingly examined the ethical dimensions of her life. Her unwavering loyalty to Hitler, even after the war, made it difficult to separate her technical achievements from the political context in which they occurred. She became an example of how talent and dedication can exist alongside moral blindness. Hanna Reitsch died in 1979 at the age of 67. Her death marked the end of a life that had spanned some of the most dramatic changes in aviation history, from early gliders to rocket-powered aircraft. She had lived at the edge of technological progress and personal danger, driven by an intense love of flying. Today she remains a complex and controversial figure. Her skill, courage, and contributions to aviation are undeniable, yet her political loyalties and lack of remorse continue to cast a long shadow. Her biography serves as a reminder that historical figures can be both remarkable and deeply flawed, and that understanding them requires looking at both their achievements and the choices they made.